Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. Super excited to have another college on the podcast today. We go all the way up to Iowa, to Indianola, Iowa, where we are with Emily Barrett Payne. She's a former Denver gymnast who graduated in 2016 from University of Denver. Super excited to have her on, and to kind of talk about her opportunity to be the head coach at Simpson College and kind of what's on the horizon for them and what they have going on for the 2024 season, and kind of get to know Emily on a personal level. Welcome, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's kind of start off with talking about your time at Denver. Can you talk about your experience there and what that meant for you, and also about your coaches and how they might have influenced you to want to become a coach yourself, at least in the collegiate realm?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at Denver from 2013 to 2016. And I loved my time there. Due to life circumstances, obviously I don't live in Colorado right now, but I think, if things were different, I'd still be out there. I'd still be pretty close to the Denver area. But yeah, I absolutely loved my time there. I had a great 4 years, minor injuries, which was great. But yeah, and then, Melissa Kutcher-Reinhardt, who is still the head coach there. She was my coach and she was just incredible. And then I also had Lena Skaveka, who was also still there. So really both of them played a really big role in just my enjoyment for the sport. And honestly, like you said, kind of my, intrigue and going back into the college world. I definitely did not plan to do this with my life, but, after I left, I just kind of still had that itch to continue with it in some way or another. And, but yeah, truly had a wonderful experience. They were really great at building us up and focusing on all of the other aspects besides gymnastics. So academics and just you as a whole person, and kind of focusing on what you want to do after you're done and when you graduate. So it was a really great place to be. It's their 50th, year as a program this year. So, so really exciting year, and yeah, very thankful for my time there.
You get to go back to Colorado, or even get to go and watch any of the competition. At least probably not so much now with your coaching position, but from 2016 until you're really coaching, were you able to go back?
Yes. Yeah. I always went back for alumni night. So I did that, I think, every single year. I'm actually trying to make it work this year too, because it's the 50th year. So we'll see. But yes, it has gotten a lot harder to get out there. But yeah, even last year I was able to go out for regionals. They hosted, they were one of the regional sites last year. So it was after our season was over. So I was able to get back out there. So a lot of my friends and teammates still live there. So I try to get out there at least once a year to see everyone.
And from some research that I've done, it seems as though Beam was probably one of your favorite events, or one of the events that you really kind of, highlighted while you're at Denver.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I didn't really kind of break into Beam consistently till my senior year. And obviously Beam is incredibly nerve-wracking. So, I don't know if it was my favorite per se. I did learn to enjoy it by the end of my senior year. I really loved vault. It just kind of came easy for me. So it was one of those events I was able to do all 4 years, and I really liked vault. But yeah, Beam, I learned a lot about myself through being in the Beam lineup my senior year.
And you had a 9.9, which was a career high for you your senior year, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep. Kind of towards, I think, the end of senior year. So that was really special.
And one thing, talking about injuries, you said you didn't really have too many injuries. I noticed, just kind of looking at some videos, which probably is a good thing. I've seen the Jaeger that clipped the bar in a competition, and then also when you're doing the twisting and kind of over twisted on the floor, which talks a lot about, I think, about you as a person who can kind of overcome some of those things that could really scar people sometimes. And hopefully you didn't get any serious injuries from those things. But we all, in gymnastics, you probably see those things all the time, but doing that in a competition is not always ideal. But to be able to have fun and to be able to continue, and as you had mentioned earlier, that you didn't really have too many injuries while you're at Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it just hurt my pride. That Jaeger in front of 30,000 people was not super fun. But ours was not my strongest event, but I'm, was proud of myself for being able to finish that routine in particular. But
yeah. I have a couple fun facts. So you and I share, I think, the exact same anniversary, May 29th, 2021.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's my exact same anniversary. And I think you're going into celebrating 11 years with you and your husband.
Yes.
And my wife and I, this upcoming spring, will make 10 years for us. So I thought that was kind of interesting when I was kind of looking at stuff like that. And then also Katie Brown, who is not Katie Brown anymore. She went to Utah State, and you guys went to Bart Connor in Oklahoma, which Norman, Oklahoma was home for you, correct?
Yes. Yep. That's where I grew up.
Yeah. So I was a volunteer at Utah State and had Katie as one of my athletes when I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I love her. She had a great career at Utah State, and her and her husband live in the Minneapolis area. So actually not too far away from where I'm at. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yep. And I'm originally from Minnesota. So it's a lot of, so it's
a lot of parallels there.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about Bart Connor. Talk about your time there as a club athlete, and then your journey to Denver. How did that become what it was, and how did being a club gymnast there really kind of form your identity into being a gymnast and who you were as a person, and also the characteristics that you built because of your time there that you're able to bring into what you do now as a head coach?
Yeah. So you're right. I went to Bart Connor Gymnastics growing up. I didn't switch gyms. I stayed there my whole life. Recruiting process wise, obviously I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. My father worked at OU for 40 years. So I still am a big Sooner fan. So obviously tried to go that route. As you know, they're a fantastic program with lots of success. So wasn't quite at that level. Very thankful that I ended up at Denver, though. It was, like I said, a great experience. And I really had an amazing club and college experience with coaches, and, just formed some really good relationships. I have nothing bad to say about my club environment, my club coaches, my college environment, nothing. So I think that was really helpful for me to just kind of see what a healthy environment looks like. And just, especially like both places really had similar values in terms of, kind of there's more to life than gymnastics, I would say is kind of the biggest value that I would say between both of those places. And so that's really what I try to bring with my coaching and what I talk with recruits that come on campus and even with the girls here is, gymnastics should be your third priority. Your first priority is your physical and mental health. Second priority is academics. Third is gymnastics. So we try to make sure that we're holding that hierarchy. Even if the girls want gymnastics to be the main priority, we kind of have to be like, no, that's we got to focus on these other pieces first. And so I think just kind of through my experience and the positive experience that I had, that's what I try to bring to our program with our team.
I love that. And having Bart Connor be home, can you talk about just what it was like growing up with your coaches there, and all the way from if you started at rec classes or mommy and me classes all the way through your compulsories and your optional career? Talk about those coaches. Talk about the lessons that you learned being there.
Yeah. So I started there when I was 8. I think I started at kind of like a smaller rec program when I was around 4. Kind of did it here and there, and then really started when I was 8. So I was kind of a late bloomer, I guess, for gymnastics in the world of gymnastics. So I did have the same coach for my compulsory years, and then I actually had a small stint there, Cecile and Laurent Landy, who now are at WCC. They were my coaches for 2 years, and then they left Bart Connor. So then I went back to my compulsory coach, Christian, and so he was my coach for the next 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. So yeah, so I think that was it made that place really special to me. Really kind of made it a home away from home. And yeah, so some of the big lessons that I learned were just kind of perseverance, and kind of continuing to show up day in and day out and just kind of put in that work, to get where I wanted to be. And, Christian was great with that and was great with kind of caring for you as a whole person, kind of like I already talked about. So, he cared about school. He, was not like, oh, you have to be at practice every single day. If there's, events that you want to go to, let's kind of figure out a plan. And, maybe you're not missing every Friday for football games, when you're in high school, but you can miss a few here and there. So that was really good and really helpful as I kind of moved through that and went to Denver and all of those things. So, but yeah, that place is really special. And I say that too, because even when I became a head coach, obviously I never recruited before. This is my first collegiate coaching job. So I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, but I'd never recruited before. So, but I knew that Bart Connor had 10 graduating seniors for the class of 2022. And so I just kind of made a beeline for that gym. And I ended up recruiting 3 athletes from Bart Connor. We still have 2 on the team right now. So that was another kind of parallel and a connection that I was able to hold on to when I became a head coach, and I was able to kind of go after that gym, pretty heavily. So that was great.
Really having consistency in your coaching, I think it's super important. Myself being a club coach, think it's super important to, especially in the compulsory levels, to be able to have consistency. And I think the coaches that you had for that stint are obviously world renowned, now with some of the athletes that they have under their belt, with Madison Koshin, obviously Simone Biles, Jordan Child, and the list goes on of other athletes that they have at the highest of levels. And so, but also having a place where you're consistently there, that you felt great about. It's not always everybody's story, which I think is amazing, which I will assume, and we can talk about too, your parents, kind of what were they like, and talk about their support for you as an athlete and their support for your career as a gymnast, to also allow you to go to those football games on Fridays and be a kid, but also be able to excel at a sport and get to the point where you're able to do it collegiately, especially at a Division I program.
Yeah. No, my parents were amazing through that whole process. We lived, about 20 to 30 minutes away from the gym, which is not that far. A lot of people live further away from their club program. But I remember I went through level 4, so my parents obviously drove me back and forth every day. And then when I got to level 5, my sister made it to level 4. And the times were completely different. I think she started at 4. I started at 5. She ended at 6. I ended at 8. And so my parents, for a little while there, were driving back and forth multiple times a day. And then eventually they were like, you know what, we need to live closer to the gym. So, and I know there were other factors involved in that decision. But so we ended up moving 2 minutes away from the gym where my parents still live. And so I think that was maybe not necessarily a sacrifice that they made, because it kind of pulled us closer into the town of Norman. We lived kind of on the outskirts, but that was definitely, I think, a decision that, mine and my sister's gymnastics career kind of pushed that decision along a little bit. So that was first and foremost. But then besides that, they're just incredibly supportive of everything. And, they were big on letting us kind of find what our passion was. And for me, I found that pretty early on. And they were just kind of there to support. They never pushed. They never, they were never over involved. They weren't under involved. They were just kind of like that perfect amount of supportive, but not overbearing, I guess you could say. And yeah, they were just super grateful and for just my experience at Bart Connor and at Denver, and just super supportive that whole time. So, and then they continue to be supportive. My dad both of my parents are retired. My dad, one of his hobbies, and it's honestly something he's very good at. I would say it's more than a hobby because he's very good at it, but he does photography. So he used to take pictures of me and my sister when we were gymnasts, and now he's kind of started to do it a little bit when they're able to get up to Iowa. And he does all of our team pictures. So he did team pictures for us a few weeks ago. He'll take pictures at practice. He'll come out for meets. And yeah, so that's been really helpful for us as a new program, just because we don't quite have the same funds and same budget to kind of hire out those people. So, so they still to this day continue to be very supportive of everything.
And can you also talk about how your coaching journey, going from club gymnast to collegiate athlete, and then going back to being a club coach? So I've seen that you went back to Bart Connor and you coached for a little bit. And obviously, we talked about this off camera, but I'm wearing this on purpose because this summer I got an opportunity to work with Ryan Roberts, and he hires a staff to go and coach at club gyms to kind of help, and he has former national team member staff that he goes out and he kind of sends them out to be able to help develop club coaches. And one of them was Thrive, which is in Maryland. And so how did your journey go from, collegiate athlete to club coaching, and what drove you to want to get into coaching in general, and then the transition to becoming a collegiate coach?
Yeah. So my journey to being a coach was kind of a windy road. That's not necessarily what I planned on doing. Some people know in college, like, hey, I want to be a club coach or I want to be a collegiate coach after this. I actually wanted to be a school counselor. So my degree is in psychology, which I loved. I loved doing those classes and I loved that degree. As you probably know, there's not a ton you can do with an undergrad degree in psychology. So I went to grad school for 2 weeks at UGA, actually. So I was a Georgia Bulldog for 2 weeks. But it was just not, I just wasn't in a great spot in my personal life to be able to do that. So I made the decision to leave. I moved back home and, coached for maybe a few months. And then my boyfriend at the time, now husband, got an opportunity to coach, at the Naval Academy. So he was the men's assistant coach there for 4 years. Obviously at the time I wasn't doing very much. I didn't have a full-time job, wasn't in school. So I went with him, and I found Thrive, which was incredible. And that's actually kind of what caused me to end up pursuing coaching as a career. So we moved out to Annapolis, Maryland, and it was a great time. We do miss it. Sometimes, just that area of the country. I never in a million years would have thought I would have lived in Maryland. But I was able to start coaching at Thrive, just kind of part-time at first, and then worked into a full-time position. Did a little bit of rec coaching, pre-K program director, helped out with some enrollment directing and things of that nature. And then in addition, I was a team coach, and I worked with Sheree Reagan, who is just an incredible human. Yes. Incredible human. And I think when I got there, there were a few level 7s that ended up moving over to Excel. So we were kind of starting from scratch with a level 3 and 4, team. And that was it. That's all we had. So she's done a phenomenal job. As I know, she now has solid level 9s and level 10s that are looking at college scholarships and, probably pushing to make nationals this year, which is awesome. So, I've loved working with her. And then the owner, Courtney Parfit, she is an incredible gym owner as well. And just, I think that what she's done in order to build out the culture of Thrive within the coaching staff and within the community, that's really what caused me to just kind of fall in love with coaching and being a part of that environment. Not all programs are like that. I think you'd be hard pressed to find another program that's as dedicated to that culture piece. And yeah, so it was really an amazing place to be. And if it weren't for the opportunity at Simpson, I would probably still be there. I still had that always had that itch to be a collegiate coach, but, I'd still probably be at Thrive. So, yeah, truly an amazing place. And yeah, they've done an amazing job of kind of putting their name on the map and, becoming nationally known. So I had to give a shout out to them. But yeah, so great environment there. I would say probably in maybe 2019, so about my second or third year at Thrive, I just kind of had that itch to get back into the collegiate realm. Tried to be a volunteer coach at some of the programs nearby. Just the timing didn't really work out. There weren't quite that many opportunities open, and then COVID happened. So that put kind of a hold on everything. But kind of throughout that process, I was always still kind of keeping my eye out. I was a little scared to leave, I would say. I was kind of scared to make that jump and leave that environment just because it was such a great place to coach. But then this opportunity came up at Simpson, and it was a big one. I kind of thought, oh, I'll be a volunteer coach, then I'll move into assistant coaching and then kind of see where it goes. But my husband is the head coach of the men's team here at Simpson. So he knew about this opportunity. And so it took a lot of talks, a lot of convincing, but we obviously, had to go through the interview process and all of that at Simpson. But we both made that decision to take the jump, move out to Iowa, which is closer to home for me. So that's nice. But, it was just a really big opportunity, but one that we felt like wouldn't come open ever again. And not even the chance to lead a new program, but just the idea of him being a coach for the men's side of the program and me being a coach for the women's side. That doesn't happen that often. The stars kind of have to align pretty perfectly for that to happen. So, so we made that jump, and it's been wild. It's been a great 2 years, but we have both learned a lot. Even with him having his background in college coaching, it's been a lot, but it's been so fun. Yeah.
And kind of summarizing, like going back to Thrive, I agree with you. Being there, it was a great place, great environment. As you said about the owner, she's a great woman from the interaction that I had, and the culture piece is super important, like you said, and I see that. The other thing too is sometimes I think Excel programs don't always get the credit that it deserves, because sometimes it depends on how some program uses it. It could be a place where people or athletes can stay in the sport, but don't have to have the same commitment as the developmental program does, right? Or sometimes they use it as a replacement of compulsory, and then they go into optionals. But the way that I see that the Excel program is at Thrive is like they really see it as a program that really matters, and it goes back to that culture, right? Because those kids are working hard, they're conditioning hard. They'll give compulsory kids a run for their money, right? Which I'm sure there's a lot of other programs out there that are just like that, but it's not as common as you would see, at least from what I know from Excel. And my view is limited, but it was impressive to really see that, and the staff that Sheree has put together to be able to have that identity and have that drive to really, help her staff, but help those kids really reach beyond their potential, which is the goal, to not only reach your potential, but beyond that. And I think they're doing a great job. And, being able to have a fortunate opportunity like you do to have your husband coaching and you coaching, and you guys understand the life, you guys are doing the life together, which is amazing. And as you said, it's very, very rare, and I can't think of a coaching duo like that off the top of my head who's the head coach of a men's program collegiately, and then a women's head coach collegially at the same time. And talking about that, you guys get to escape gymnastics when you guys get home and just kind of leave it at work, or sometimes it comes home with you guys just because you guys live and breathe it all day?
Yeah, I would say probably the second one. It does sometimes come home with us, but it's more like decompressing at the end of the day. And we actually share an office, so he's not in the office right now, but, we have learned a lot about how to work with each other. I would say that first year was kind of hard because we didn't have athletes on campus. We moved in November of 2021 and just were recruiting that whole year to kind of build out our first year teams. So we were in the office a lot with each other. We lived in Des Moines, so we commuted about 30 minutes every day. And yeah, that was hard because we realized that we have very different work personalities. Sometimes I'll just like randomly start talking about things, and he's like in the middle of something and he's like, I need you to stop talking right now. And at first it like hurt my feelings, and now I'm like, no, you're right. Okay, I'll leave you alone. So we kind of learned how to work with each other. I think a unique perspective for us is like, we obviously we share a gym too. So a lot of programs share a gym with their men's and women's team. And so sometimes, coaches can butt heads. Sometimes they don't get along, the men's and women's programs, but obviously we do. Our teams are like brothers and sisters. We are really good at kind of, especially this year, now that our teams are really big, where we have to plan out our rotations and, he's on floor one day, so my team goes to vault, and then we switch the next day, just so that we're not running into each other. But we really do. We care about each other's teams. I mean, if I see something on an event, obviously men's gymnastics is pretty different from women's gymnastics, but if I see something, I'll help them with a correction. Colin will help the girls on floor. So we do kind of work together in that regard, which I think is good. Some programs don't have that type of, I guess working together like that. So
that synergy, yeah.
Synergy, yeah.
So can you talk about a little bit of just Indianola as a town and kind of what is attractive about the town? What are some of the things to do? What are things that you guys enjoy, or even your athletes kind of enjoy about the town? And then you had mentioned that it's about 30 minutes away from Des Moines, Iowa. And for someone who may not know, Iowa's in the Midwest. It sits right under Minnesota and directly south. And so you get some of that cold weather and snow and stuff like that. And obviously you're next to another pretty prestigious program in regard to winter sports, at least, and in the Iowa Hawkeyes and stuff like that. So can you kind of talk about that relationship as well?
Yeah. So Indianola it's a pretty small town. We have about roughly, I'd say 16 to 17,000 people. It is growing. So we are about 20 minutes south of Des Moines, lots of farmland in between Des Moines and Indianola. Which is important. We grow corn, so we provide most of the nation's corn. But yeah, so a smaller community. What we like to say here is that you get the best of both worlds. Excuse me. So, you get kind of that small town feel, a really kind of community oriented place. Indianola cannot exist without Simpson, and Simpson cannot exist without Indianola. They really do work together, and we do have a new president this year, so he's really working on building those connections to the Indianola community as well as the Des Moines community, just to kind of put our name out there. So with the best of both worlds, you get the small town feel, but you also have Des Moines. South Des Moines is actually about 20 minutes up the road. If you really want to get into the heart of Des Moines and West Des Moines and the mall, which is where all the girls like to go. The malls, the various restaurants on that side, that's about 30 minutes away. So, so the girls, I would say they, typically they do spend a lot of time on campus just with their academics, and they spend a lot of time with each other, just hanging out and, watching movies and bonding and things like that. But, when they do get out, they do go up to Des Moines. They like to go to brunch on Sundays, go out to eat at the restaurants up there. We are a little bit limited in Indianola with what we have for restaurants and things like that. But I mean, you have all the options you could possibly want just 20 to 30 minutes away. So that's kind of what we like to talk about here at Simpson, is that you can have both. You can be in the big city. It's a Midwest city, so it's not super big, but I think the beautiful thing is that we don't have any traffic here. That's not a thing. So like, oh, there's traffic. No, there's not. Especially after being in Annapolis, there's not traffic here at all. So that piece is nice, but and then just the relationship with the other schools. Obviously, it's in Iowa, you're either a Hawkeye fan or you're a Cyclone fan. That's it. There's no in between. You're either for Iowa State or you're for Iowa. So so I think that's kind of interesting to see that perspective. Obviously coming from Norman and being an OU fan, and then being at Denver, which is kind of a smaller school. It's kind of like that. Like Iowa and Iowa State are huge. And, have a really wide reaching fan base. Simpson's this small school down south of Des Moines, and OU is a big school. Denver's obviously well known, but smaller. So I think I kind of have a unique perspective there of having been to a smaller school in college and kind of understanding what that looks like and what the benefits are, and maybe some of the things that are not benefits, but there's so many. I would say there's more pros than cons, truthfully, with a smaller community like this. So.
And what are some of the academic things that Simpson College is really known for? you had mentioned that there's a lot of corn. So if I were to assume without knowing that it would be an agricultural school, but I could be wrong. What are some of the academic things, and what are some of the programs that your student athletes are participating in?
Yeah, so we actually don't have much agricultural stuff at Simpson. That's not the right term. Stuff is not the right term. But I think Iowa State's actually kind of like the big agricultural school. But yeah, so I'm trying to think. So the two programs that we're really well known for are our education program and then criminal justice, actually. So those are the most well known programs. I'd say the most prestigious, and then health and exercise science is the most popular. We're about 65% student athletes at Simpson. So out of the 1,200 students that we have here, about 700 are student athletes. So it's pretty cool. So typically athletes tend to go towards what they know. Most people do that, but so health and exercise science tends to be where they land. So we have lots of people in that degree, and then within that we have lots of different kind of concentrations is what we call them. So pre-physical therapy, pre-athletic training, pre-chiropractic. You can even be in health and exercise science and be pre-nursing, which is what one of our athletes is doing. So lots of things that you can do with that. So pretty popular. And then within our team, most of them are in health and exercise science. I think we have about 6 or 7 at this point out of the 22 that are doing that. So a lot of them are going pre-athletic training. That's kind of the route that they want to take. But beyond that, I mean, they kind of span everything. I have a few in bio. I have one engineering major. I have a criminal justice major. Actually, she's our first criminal justice major. She really likes it. So that's awesome. And I would say one of the perks of being at a smaller school is that we have so many connections with various places, especially in Des Moines. So a lot of our professors have close connections with, people that can do internships, people that can offer jobs. Once the girls graduate, there's just so many opportunities to kind of do that academically. So
for you, I know when you're an athlete, you're an academic All-American. And so I would assume that academics is a huge priority for you, in which you had already mentioned earlier in kind of the list of order that you want the athletes to kind of kind of view their time in college. But can you talk a little bit about the standard that you hold for your athletes academically?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our team goal is to maintain or kind of average a 3.5 GPA per semester. I think a lot of people think that because Simpson is a smaller school that maybe our academics aren't as good. That's absolutely not the case. It's actually a fairly hard school. It's difficult. But I think that's good. It prepares them for life after graduation. Like, they will graduate being prepared for what they want to do. So I think that's awesome. So that's kind of our goal, as a team. Last year we had 15 freshmen. We had no upperclassmen. So so we're still working on getting that 3.5 GPA. The girls are doing a fantastic job this semester. Even if their grades are maybe not where they want them to be or where we want them to be as a team, they're utilizing all of their resources. They have tutors. They're going to office hours. They are getting extra help. They're helping their teammates. Going to extra study hall time. So they're doing a really good job. We actually did midterm meetings a few weeks ago, and it was probably middle of October. And so as a coach, I'm able to see all of their midterm grades, and I knew going in, I knew what to expect because they had communicated. They're like, "Hey, Emily, I'm struggling in this class right now. Here's what I'm doing. I just wanted to let you know, the steps that I'm taking." And then, that way I can be like, "Oh, well, have you tried this? Maybe you can meet about your test with your professor, go over your test." And that way that can help you kind of understand a little bit more. But they have done really well with that communication piece. So when I went in to look at their midterm grades, I knew what to expect. And so I just think that standard has been elevated this year. Maybe our GPA won't be a 3.5 this semester, but they're taking the right steps, and I think their priorities are in the right place. And that's been really special and rewarding to see. this year is just that push towards the academic piece and them understanding that, they're going to graduate and maybe they stay involved in gymnastics in one way or another, but their time in the sport is likely going to come to an end. And so they need to be, kind of focused on those other pieces of their life and what they want to do when they graduate.
No, I agree 100%, because this is, the gymnastics piece is such a short-lived time, in our life. Hopefully we live a long life, but it's going to be so short, and being able to know what you want to do to be able to serve your community and the people around you, is super important. And glad that, that's a high standard. And with your team, like you said, a lot of freshmen that are really moving the right direction, which is great. And to get that many to be able to do things like that is hard.
Right.
Just even getting 15 people to just look right at the same time is hard. So, kudos to you guys and the work that you're doing, you and your staff and your team. Talking about even just your program, how old is your program? Because you mentioned you didn't have any upperclassmen, with a huge freshman class. So does that mean that Simpson's college gymnastics team is fairly new, or has it been around, or just because of the landscape of how things just happen that it is the way it is?
Yeah. Yes. So it is new. We're going into our second season as a team. So 2021 to 22, we were just recruiting. 22, 23 was our first season. So we're going into year 2. We have, so those 15 freshmen I was talking about, they're now 14 sophomores. And then we have 8 freshmen right now. So that's, just new team. So that's kind of how it rolls. So our team's going to be pretty big for the next few years until that first class graduates, which, I've already talked with their parents, and they're like, how are you going to handle yourself when they're seniors? And it's like their senior night. I'm like, I'm going to be a sobbing mess on the floor. I'm going to be crying my eyes out. So, so we are a new team. And so, it comes with its own set of challenges, but I've been super proud of the way that the sophomores have conducted themselves this preseason, and watching them lead the freshmen has been really rewarding. So,
who do you have as your staff of your program? Is it just you? Do you have other assistants, and what other support do you have?
Yes, I have 2 amazing assistant coaches. The first one is Kelsey Kokan. She has a background in athletic training. So she got her undergrad at Central Michigan in athletic training and also got a master's. So she has a little bit of that background, which has been super beneficial for us. She also has 13 years of coaching experience at the club level. She has coached at Flip Fest for the last 12 years and was there full time.
Flip Fest.
Yeah.
She's Miss Flip Fest.
Yeah. So she's been a great addition to our staff. She actually moved out to Des Moines in August. She is coaching at Emerge Academy full time. So she's with us part time. So she kind of has a job and a half right now. She's very busy. But she is our floor coach. She's done an amazing job getting our team ready on floor. She creates all of our prehab. She has created some extra core circuits for the team, and just provides an overall level of enthusiasm and excitement and passion for the sport of gymnastics. So, unfortunately we don't have her every practice because her duties are to Emerge Academy first. So, but when she's there, it's always a good time. She always lightens the mood and make sure that we're, focused and just having a good time while also getting assignments done. So she's wonderful. And then we also have Kelsey Boychuk, and she is, she just graduated from Iowa State. So she is originally from Denver, which is funny with that little connection. She's originally from Denver, went to Iowa State for 5 years, and just graduated and wanted to kind of get into coaching. So we have her on staff as well. She's our primary beam coach, and she's also been great too. She's, kind of providing us a fresh perspective, being just out of the collegiate world. And, it's changed over the past few years since I was in college. So she's kind of provided that experience and just that different perspective. But she's a little bit calm and steady, I would say. And the girls have really warmed up to her. And so she's been wonderful, and she's goofy and silly with the girls too. So, it's a really fun staff, and I'm really looking forward to season with them. They've been really helpful, and they have made my job a lot easier. so far.
Yeah.
So,
and what are some of the goals that you guys have between you three for your team? And what do you guys want to get out of your team, and how does that look? And then finally, for you, can you talk about your first year as a head coach, what that kind of looked like? And especially in a competition setting, what is your personality on the competition floor? Do you get anxious? Are you pretty excited? Are you energetic? So then other potential recruits can kind of see and know what kind of coach you are, at least especially on a competition floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some of the goals that we have for the program are, we talked about this as a team. We did our team retreat back in September, and we did some goal setting with them. So one of the goals is to break every single record, which should be doable. So we want to break our record on all 4 events. We do have some. We try to stay away from score records, just because you cannot control the judging. We all know that no matter what level you're at, you cannot control the judging. So we try to stay away from that. However, we do want to, we have a few of those goals. So breaking all of our records, including our team record, which right now is a 185, 175. So I think we can easily beat that this year. Some of our kind of, I guess, longer term goals, a big long-term goal is for us to qualify to nationals as a team. This is our first year of being eligible for that. We weren't eligible our first season. It's going to be hard. It's definitely not going to be easy. There's 18 Division III programs. You have to be in the top 6. Last year there were 17 programs, and we finished 17th, which is okay. So, but it is definitely an uphill climb, uphill battle to get there. So, that is one of our long-term goals as a team. Shorter term, this year we want to at least qualify individuals to nationals, which again, I think is definitely doable. We have some really strong athletes on certain events. So, I think that would be great. And even though it's an individual athlete that qualifies, it's for the program. So that one person is still representing our program as a whole. So, so those are some of our goals. We want to increase our consistency this year, especially on beam and bars. We had a very strong beam team last year, but, just kind of had some nerves in there. A few meets, there were some meets that were great, some meets that were a little more nervy. And then bars is our big one. Bars was definitely our weakest event last year. So we're really focusing kind of team-wide on improving that. So consistency, start values, details, things like that. Last year it was hard with only 15 people. It was, especially once injuries come into play, you kind of lose your depth a little bit. So, kind of overall, we want to increase our depth. We want to be able to compete 6 people plus 2 exhibitions on every single event this year. Last year it was 5 to 6 people on every event. So, so those are some of our goals for the team. I think having a sophomore class is really beneficial because they've been there. They competed all last year, and so they kind of know what to expect. Like I said earlier, they're helping the freshmen understand that, right now is kind of a hard time in the gym. We're kind of grinding through and getting those routines going, and that it's okay to not be perfect. And it's all part of the process, and to just take it one day at a time. So we've been kind of help remind them of that, and just making sure that they're focusing on the positives and, understanding that, this is part of that process. The end goal is it's in sight. We're getting really close to season now. So, that can kind of help them push through and kind of remember what it was like last year, and how much fun they had last year, but also knowing like, oh, we can be even better this year. And so I think that's been really motivating for them. And then remind me what the last part of the question was. Yeah.
So the last part was kind of talking about you as in your first year, what things that you kind of learned, and your personality on a competition floor. I think it's really important to kind of know what your coach is like on the floor, because I think we feed off of each other's energy. Not only the athletes feed off of each other's energy, but also the coach, So I think a lot of times you see, which is a thing in college gymnastics, which is fun and kind of helps the crowd get into it, is when there's an exciting routine, a hit routine, the coach really gets into it. But also there's times where there's some coaches who might be just a little bit more reserved, or just a little bit more intense in regards to just their, not necessarily their demeanor, but like, almost a seriousness into just how they are, just because that's their personality. But it also, the team understands, right? And it really helps launch the team into whatever direction, and they know this is kind of our identity, and we're going to feed off of it, and we're going to make the best out of it. So what did you learn from your first year on a competition floor, and kind of what is your personality as a coach?
Yeah. So I learned a lot. It'd probably take me like 2 hours to talk about everything that I learned. But I would say the biggest thing that maybe kind of the difference between last year and this year for myself is knowing what to expect. Kind of the same thing with the girls, because I did not know what to expect. But it was, for lack of a better term, it was almost like the blind leading the blind. I had my experiences from when I was an athlete, but as a coach on that other side, it's a little bit different. So, so I think I just kind of learned what that looks like. And a big thing too was, just kind of learning how each girl operates during season and preseason, and kind of learning what each individual athlete needs, what motivates them, how they behave during season, and what they need from me as a coach, I would say, is the biggest thing that I learned. So last year I was a little bit more reserved in season. I'm a big believer that like on meet day, it's their time to shine. It's nothing to do with the coaching staff. Like we put in the work as a coaching staff during preseason and during practices, but then during season, it's theirs, so.
Agreed.
So we like to kind of try to take a little bit of a step back, and we're there to guide them, but it's their moment. And so we do kind of like let them, they work together with their warm-ups. They work together with moving mats and setting boards on vault and all of those sorts of things. And we practice all of that right now so that when it comes to season, they already know what to do. So I would say that's kind of my philosophy when it comes to meets. With that said, I'm much more excited this year to kind of, maybe be a little bit more, like excited and pumped up and motivating and things like that. Not that I think I was motivating last year, but I was definitely a little bit quieter during meets and kind of like faded into the background. Like I'm excited to be right up there with them, like cheering them on and celebrating and just like instilling that confidence and telling them you can do this, you're capable, you've put in the work, things of that nature. So I'm excited for that this year.
I love that. I love it. And what conference are you guys currently in? And you had mentioned also earlier that you guys are a Division III program. And so that means there isn't scholarships, but obviously there's opportunity to really, be a part of the team and compete. And you've gotten in your first year 15 athletes, which is great to be able to get that. And kind of what are you excited about, in regards to your conference? And I kind of heard from some other coaches that are interviewed that you guys may be doing a conference change, and not this upcoming season, but the 2025 season. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So we're currently not in a conference. It's just kind of a long process. You have to apply, and then there's conversations on, well, what does that look like? What does it mean to add another team to this conference? So not in a conference this year, but we were accepted into the WIAC conference for 2024-2025, so that season. So we'll be added to that conference, which is super exciting. It's just a great opportunity for our program and to be able to provide a postseason for the athletes. So really looking forward to that. So that's going to be the 5 Wisconsin schools that have gymnastics at the Division III level, and then there's 3 schools in Minnesota, so Hamlin, Gustavus, and Winona State. So we're really looking forward to that. It'll be 9 teams, so pretty big conference there. But it's just great. It makes scheduling a little bit easier. It makes just kind of the flow of season a little bit better. So we're really looking forward to that. And obviously once we are kind of in that conference and have a few years, like we want to be able to win a conference championship. So that's one of another like long-term goal for our program. So so really looking forward to that.
And in regards to recruiting, who are the contact people if I'm interested, or if I have an athlete who's interested in your program, who should they reach out to you personally or to one of your assistant coaches? And what is the best route to communicate with you, through email, through text messages, and where can I find that if that's a way to be able to communicate with you? And then also social media, using Instagram or Facebook or any of those ways to be able to get in contact.
Yeah. So on our website, so if you just type in Simpson Women's Gymnastics to Google, our page will pop up that has my email address on there. I should actually have all 3 of our email addresses on there. And I would say the best way to initially get into contact with us is by email. So you can email one of us, all 3 of us, 2 of us, doesn't matter. I would say that's the best way to kind of start that process. We also have, we do have a Facebook page. We're a little bit less active on that one. We also have Instagram. And so I think if there's a potential recruit out there who's interested, start tagging us in videos. We see all of them. I know there's some programs that get so many notifications every day. We're not quite to that level yet. So we do actually see every single video. So I would say that's a good way, email. And then we kind of go from there in terms of, setting up phone calls or just continuing with email correspondence. We also have a recruiting questionnaire on our website. Some programs don't use those quite as much anymore, but we still do. So that's a really good way to kind of put your information down, the skills that you've competed, what you're working on, what level you are, your club coach, phone number, things like that. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with us.
Very cool. Yeah. And then what time do you guys practice during the day? And what days do you guys practice?
Yeah, so we, that's kind of the unique part of being part of a new program is that, obviously we don't have our own facility quite yet. We're working on that. Our athletic director has been incredible with kind of helping us work towards that and get us what we need. So for the moment, we do actually have equipment on campus. We share the basketball court with every other sport at Simpson. So one of the basketball courts, we do have our equipment set up. So we train there from 4 to 7 on Mondays and Fridays. And then the other 3 days of the week, we actually have a van from the school and we drive up to Emerge Academy, which is up in the West Des Moines area. It's about 30 minutes away from campus. And we have about half of our teams able to get up there on Tuesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and then Saturday morning. So we're really kind of all over the place there. And if our athletes aren't able to get up to Emerge because of their class schedule, then they just train on campus that evening. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The reason why we still go up to Emerge Academy when we have equipment on campus is because they have the softer landing. So they have in-ground pits, they have resis, they have all of those sorts of things. So especially right now in the preseason, it's important for them to be able to work their skills on softer surfaces. So we're obviously still working on finding our own facility. But it's a process. So just like everything.
And where are you guys competing this year? Like your schedule, did it get released yet? And if so, where are some of the places that you guys are getting to compete this year?
Yes. Yeah. Our schedule is on our website. We have not released it on social media yet, but I would be on the lookout for that in the next few days. Should be out. So we are traveling to, I want to say 6 schools. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. We're going to see Wisconsin Oshkosh, which is super exciting. They've won back-to-back national championships. So we're excited to go out there. We're going to Lindenwood, Wisconsin Eau Claire, Greenville, Wisconsin La Crosse, Winona State. I believe those are all of our travel meets. And then we're hosting Greenville and Hamlin. So Greenville is January 20th at home and Hamlin is February 25th. At home. So pretty good schedule with we're seeing some different schools this year too. We're excited.
And what is your guys' mascot, war cry? And also what does your competition environment look like?
Yeah. So our mascot is Thunder. He is an elephant. The story behind that is that we're the Storm. So we're the Simpson Storm. Thunderstorms are loud. Elephants are also loud. So I think that we didn't have a mascot before Thunder. So, we were actually mascotless. We had nothing. So, Thunder the elephant is our mascot. We actually have a statue of him outside of our office as of last week, which is pretty cool. Our big thing that we say is roll storm because thunderstorms roll in. So, very similar to roll tide. Roll storm is kind of our thing that we like to say. The lightning bolt is our, another one of our things. Our girls do lightning bolt symbols in their floor routines and in their beam routine. So that's really, really awesome. We compete on campus, which is awesome. So we're able to actually set up, we do have a full size floor. It just doesn't quite fit in our practice space, but we do set that up for meets. So we host all of our meets in house, which is awesome. It's down in the basketball gym. So it's good. We're excited this year to kind of elevate that meet experience, and kind of make it even bigger and better than it was last year. But our first home meet, we actually had close to 500 people attend, which is really awesome and exciting for a first year program. So we're working on kind of building up that community support and bringing in, fans from Indianola and just kind of, building it out and making it something that, that people can't ignore. Making gymnastics kind of one of the sports that Simpson can be known for, and just kind of bring in a lot of support for the program and for the school. Those are our goals.
Well, what are some things that you want to leave for the listeners and the viewers to kind of know about Simpson, know about yourself, know about this upcoming year and your team?
Yeah. So I think, just kind of about Simpson is that it's honestly a really special place to be at. I think just the amount of relationships that you get to build with your professors and with your community members, and, people care about you. You're not just a number here. Truthfully, that people care about you as a person, and they're going to help you out in whatever way they can to get you ready for life after school. And so I think those relationships are really important here. In terms of our program, I think one of those things that kind of sets us apart is that we're still building. We're in our second season, but that doesn't mean that we're done building what we want. And one of the really neat things that I wanted to point out is that this year our team's actually working on creating, some really strong set values for our program. So instead of it being from the coaches, I want the girls to be able to create them, because they're going to be much more willing to buy into it. It's going to mean that much more to them. So we're actually working on that as a team right now, is building out our values for years to come. I'm like, this is not just you guys. This is not just this year. This is Simpson. Like, what does it mean to be a Simpson gymnast? So we're working on that right now. And that's really kind of every aspect of our program. We're doing it for the first or second time. And so there's still just so many milestones that we can hit. We have a lot of goals as a program. I think being a part of a program that's building is really exciting, because you may not see the results in that moment, but you can know that you made a difference, and you created, you helped kind of build everything up and kind of create the momentum necessary to achieve those goals. And I think being at Denver helped with that, because I had graduated 2016, 2017, they qualified to nationals for the first time in it's horrible that I don't remember. I think 12 years. And obviously they've qualified to nationals multiple times since then in the last few years. And so even though we didn't qualify to nationals, we were part of kind of building that trajectory towards that. And so that's what I try to tell recruits when they come out here, is we're not there yet, but you can be a part of helping us get there. And so I think that's a really special thing to be a part of.
Well, thank you so much, Emily, for being part of the podcast and talking about Simpson College and your journey and your story. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations. Please go on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and check out this episode, and please share it. So then Simpson College can get more recruits and more athletes, and kind of the name kind of be out there. It'd be kind of cool also to see a best of Iowa, kind of like Utah has a meet where they do the best of Utah, and get Simpson to a place where they're really growing, especially as they're going into their second year, and to continue to learn and to grow. So that's the point of this podcast, is to learn about other programs that are opportunities that you may have, and find a home that's special for you. Again, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, leave comments on the videos, and we're excited for you guys to tune into the next episode. Have a good one.
Thank you.